Hey, what's up everybody? It's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video we're finally talking about the AceZone A-Spire Wireless. Now, I've had this headset for a while. I know I've had it for at least a month, and the more I think about it, the more I think it's been closer to 2 months. I got it prior to launch, and the reason why I didn't release the review right away is because, one, when you get something early, if there's any kind of weird issues or features that are missing that you expected or wanted, I wanted to give AceZone a chance to respond. I wanted to see if products changed or improved, and I'll get into all those details throughout the review. The reason why I do that is because I don't want the videos to ever be misleading, and I want them to represent as close to what product you will actually get once it's in your hands. And if I rush the review and certain features were missing that are now out, and I say, well, it doesn't have this, well, that's not helping anybody. Now let's start with what you get in the box. Of course, you get the headset, and then you get this nice travel case. I really like this case. It's the right size overall. It's not too bulky, and it's just thin enough because of the way the headset folds up. This little diagram kind of shows you how to do it, and it's relatively straightforward. Just kind of twist and fold, and there you go. Obviously, I had to tuck that in a little bit better. So this is how you stow it. It makes it easy to travel, and of course you fit the extra accessories inside. Now this is the exact same case that came with the original Aspire. Only difference is there's a cutout now for the transmitter, which nicely tucks into there. You get an extra foam sock for the microphone, because my first nitpick I'll have with this particular headset is the foam sock does not stay on that easily. So I'm glad they gave you an extra one. I was really hoping they revised this and maybe did a larger one that had more of a memory effect to kind of, you know, get further down and slide on there. But at least there's an extra one in the box, and you can always get aftermarket ones or replacements later. So I'm going to move that to the side. You get this Velcro lined pocket on the left because you have a 3.5 millimeter cable, which is TRRS, and this analog cable allows you to use it as a wired headset for something like an Xbox controller, and then you get a USB-C to A cable. Now, there's a few things I want to cover as far as how this works. I believe on the Amazon listing it listed that Xbox was supported. That's only through analog. This does not work as a wireless headset for Xbox. It does work as a wireless headset on Windows, Mac, and PlayStation without any issue. And then if you do use the analog, of course it works with anything with a 3.5 millimeter TRRS connection, which includes PlayStation cables as well. And then when you have, or controllers I should say, when you have this cable connected, when you use this, it will bypass and override the wireless transmitter. You can still use this as a USB-C headset just like the old Aspire. The only difference is, and this will charge it while you're using it, the only difference is now the new one offers a wireless transmitter. Now that's purely from a connection standpoint as far as what's changed. It still has Bluetooth. It still is not simultaneous Bluetooth, which I really wish they did, considering it's still $380 and there's a lot of other premium models that offer simultaneous. They claim to have done it for performance reasons, you know, so take that for what you will. And as far as the Bluetooth goes, this is also how you customize the headset. Now, there's no Windows app, there's no Mac app, of course, that's almost never the case, but this is how you change your profiles. The big reason why I delayed this headset is because you could select a larger amount of game profiles for the Aspire Wireless. Now, the old Aspire didn't get this update. It still has the old EQ presets, which is limited to like AZ Gaming, Apex, and CSGO. I wish they had more options because it's kind of a bummer that on PlayStation you can't benefit from that. So if you are a PlayStation gamer and custom EQ is important to you, then you want to go straight to the wireless model now. Not only does it have more EQ presets, but you can also customize your own. And customizing your own gives you parametric EQ, up to 8 bands, and it does allow you to adjust frequency response, decibels or amplitude, and then your Q factor, which is how wide or narrow you adjust something. I think that's a huge selling point. There's only 3 headsets I'm aware of that offer onboard parametric EQ that works on PlayStation, and that's the SteelSeries Nova 5, it's the Astro A50X, and now the Aspire Wireless. So this is really nice that more and more models are coming out. I think parametric EQ is extremely powerful because it's not even just for gaming, it's also for fine-tuning to your preference. So for any reason you don't like the way it sounds, that really gives you a ton of options for customizing it. Now, the app doesn't have some other features I would have hoped for, such as adjusting the active noise cancellation performance, setting mic gain, things like that. It's basically focused on the audio EQ, and then if you want to have your microphone side tone on or off. Other than that, there's really no other changes to do in the app, and everything else is done through the headset because you have these buttons on the back. Now, these buttons work just like the old Aspire. You have volume up and volume down, and if you're using this as a Bluetooth headset on the go, let's say you're traveling, if you press and hold volume up, it does track forward, press and hold the minus is track back. Play, pause, or action button is pretty self-explanatory. You have your power button here, which has a mix of features, and obviously when you, I don't know if you recall seeing this earlier, there's a QR code on the box. Scan that, that'll take you to the manual, and that can explain all of the different options you can do with the power button, because there's a mix of resetting the Bluetooth, repairing it to your wireless dongle, power cycling the headset, factory reset, etc. This button here is your active noise cancellation. There are 3 modes, and this is a really powerful system because you can turn all of it off so it works as a standard wireless headset. It has the lowest noise floor, so there's no hiss or anything. And if you're listening to this in a very, very quiet environment, then you can effectively turn that off and get the best potential noise floor. Now, it does change frequency response. I'll show you the sound quality measurement soon. You can toggle it again for active noise cancellation, and then toggling it again will go into transparency mode, which effectively kind of gives you a close back as far as sound quality goes, but it also pulls in external noise. So if you want to hear ambient, your environment around you, if you have family in the house you don't want to be oblivious to, you could turn on transparency mode and pick that up, all with the press of that button, and you do get a voice prompt telling you which one you're in. As far as other controls go, you get a flip to mute microphone. Now you can see that it clips on this headband. The headband is telescoping. You have a metal band here, and then you get full swivel. So this is flip to mute. On is, or down is on. The only thing with the flip to mute is you have to basically push it like all the way back to get it to mute. Mine, if I even do this, it's now unmuted. Kind of drives me crazy because I really wish I didn't have to do that every single time, especially with a soft neck, because you could see just a little bit of movement. Now my microphone's hot again. So the microphone layout, I wish there was more improvements to it over the older one, just to be candid. And then I mentioned you can do swivel. Now this particular headset, just like the older Aspire, is a little bit on the larger side even in the smallest setting. I wouldn't want it to go any larger than its smallest setting, because if I did, and I'll show you what I mean by that, if I wear this, this is perfectly placed on my head with a hat. Without a hat, it'll drop an extra couple millimeters and it borderline a little too much. If you have a large head, then you can see there's plenty of room here. The headband expands quite a bit. But if you have a very small head and you are concerned about fitment, the way you would solve this, if you really like everything else about this headset, there are third-party pads for the headband online. It's like a zip-up pad that gives you an extra inch or 2 of padding that will lift the headset and now put it kind of in the sweet spot. So if you want to ever fine-tune the size of a headset, that's a nice quick way to do it. Now the ear pads are leather and they are very soft and supple. This is designed to create a strong seal because noise cancellation is kind of a selling point of AceZone headsets in general. They really get rid of a lot of background noise, but they are removable. So you could always buy replacements, or at least reach out to them if you ever had to replace it. This is actually for tuning. This little foam pad here is to attenuate higher frequencies. And this black thing right here is the active noise cancellation microphone. You'll have that on each side because that's how ANC works. So it's nice and flat. You don't feel any microphone kind of like jutting out into your ear. As far as build quality goes, for a $380 headset, I wish it didn't do this. It's a little creaky. And it looks a little basic, but at the same time, it's not flashy either. You could kind of see it in both ways. I really think when it comes to style, it comes to personal preference. So I don't want to, focus in on this too much. I know that some other headsets in this price range tend to look a little bit more premium, and some of them look more flashy and gamer aesthetic, where this is more subtle. I wish the microphone was detachable or had some way to pop it off, just because the active noise cancellation tech on this headset is so good. It would be a great Bluetooth headphone to travel with, and then you can add the mic for when you want to go into gaming. You could still use this as a travel headphone as long as you're okay with seeing that microphone flipped and clipped into it. Maybe take that sock off so you don't lose it on the plane. But overall, as far as comfort goes, the clamp force is rather light. Even though this looks to be a more basic headset, it also weighs less than 300 grams, so it's very easy to wear for long periods of time. And this pad, this whole setup right here, is designed to where when you are wearing it, it's not the deepest pad. In fact, I'll show you the dimensions of it, but I don't have any weird issues of comfort. I have very good even pressure distribution, and it maintains an excellent seal. Keep in mind, if you're wearing glasses with this kind of pad, you will break the seal a little bit, and that will affect noise cancellation performance. As far as dimensions go, the pad has about a 40 millimeter opening widthwise, and if you look at the height, it's just over 60 millimeters. It's a pretty traditional oval. This is the most forgiving shape. It's not like there's a chance that your ears are going to press on here just because it's large enough. And then when you look at the depth, you can see that sponginess to it is affecting it. But I get about 25 millimeters of depth on the back, and it's going to be pretty much the same. Yeah, about the same of 25 millimeters on the front side. So not really angled. It is contoured a little bit. You can see the bottom kind of scoops out a little bit. This is part of how that pressure distribution really makes it comfortable. And as a result, even with the leather padding, I can still wear this for a long period of time. It's light and the pressure's even where comfort hasn't been an issue for me. And this is what my voice sounds like in the AceZone A-Spire Wireless headset. It has some background noise rejection, but it's not significant. It's nothing like what Odyssey does with the filter, but I do want to show you that background noise. So I could see that the keyboard noise is coming in the background. It pushes it back a little bit. You know, Corsair mics, for example, they're omnidirectional. They sound fantastic, but they pick up more background noise. So it's kind of up to you on what's important. I just wanted to show you what this sounded like. Just for comparison's sake, this is what my voice sounds like on the older AceZone A-Spire wired version. Again, no changes in post-production. All right, so let's talk about sound quality, starting with the objective side, which is the measurement side, and it takes my opinion out of it. I use a Gross KB006X Pentaclone and an IC711 coupler. That may not mean much to most people, and that's fine. I just disclose that so people know what I'm using to measure. I don't have a BK5128, which is like $30,000, although one day I would love to. So if you're comparing this to someone else's measurements, if they have a different rig, it's not always apples to apples. Thankfully, I've been measuring a ton, and I have a link in the description below if you want to see how this compares against many others. Taking a look at the frequency response of the AceZone A-Spire Wireless, there are very important things to consider here, and that is how you can select different EQ modes, and active noise cancellation makes a difference as far as how it sounds. These frequency response that you're seeing right now is with noise cancellation off, and if you turn it on, it actually flattens out this hump. So I just wanted to show you how this compares, because if we scroll down here, you can see flat. If you make a custom EQ and you're starting from ground zero, this is the curve that you want to start. So if you're familiar with my tools for custom EQ, let's say you wanted to EQ this to the Warzone target, for example, in this case, make sure that you pick the flat profile at the bottom and then go to equalizer to do your auto EQ. Because if you don't and it's based off the wrong preset, the measurement's going to be off and it won't sound right. So I'm going to clear this out. I want to go back to the frequency response stuff. Now, if you turn noise cancellation on, so here's flat, right? Noise cancellation on, I'm going to hit the plus. The red line is the exact same seating position averaged out. I do multiple seatings actually. So it's multiple measurements averaged out. I did over 100 measurements of this headset to get accurate numbers. But just by enabling ANC, you can see that bass hump is kind of smoothed out. I'm going to get rid of the Warzone target here. So this is the exact same setting, ANC on or off. And this applies on all of them. So just kind of play with it. It will affect how it sounds. This isn't a bad measurement. It's not going to be the pounding bass that some people are looking for. If you like thumping, punchy bass, then maybe consider something like the Maxwell or the Stealth Pro or the Astro A50X. They have pretty strong bass when you want it to. And you can see there's a lot of different presets we can look at. Check out the immersive preset. That nicely lifts up the bass. And then if I go down, you can see that they have a Call of Duty preset built in. This is an awesome preset. These do work. It does help. It kind of fine-tunes the sound. If I go to CS2, it's a very different sound signature than Call of Duty. I mean, that's quite a wild change, to be honest. So playing around with your EQs, maybe you'll find one that sounds better to you or not. It's not like one measurement represents this headset as a whole. And then when you add in the fact that you can do custom parametric EQ, I think it's quite nice. It hears somewhat close. If I just go back, just to give you an example, we're going to do flat, and I want to turn on a couple others here. So we have balanced, which is a good one to really consider, to be honest, especially for you music listeners out there. I have immersive and impactful. These are going to be closer to your Harman curve. So if I turn on the Harman 28 or 2018, you can see that this sub-bass lift here is more matching to the immersive one. However, because this is all scooped down here, you can see the recess at 2K and in the 5K region, which I like. That helps reduce listening fatigue. This is all tilted down, so I think the balance preset gets closer to Harman, but none of them are. It's a different sound signature. I still think it's acceptable for music, but it's not going to have the same tonality and natural sound presentation as the higher end music. I don't want to say music focus, but something like the Odyssey Maxwell or the Turtle Beach Stealth Pro to me still sound better in music. Even the Astro A50X has an edge in music. The last thing I want to point out is channel matching, and this was a common thing. I don't want to hide the fact that I had like a 5 decibel difference from the left and right driver. So if you look here, I mean, these are closer to 3 to 4 decibels, so maybe not 5. And it wasn't just this measurement. You got to keep in mind, I did hundreds of measurements. If I go to balanced, here's the same thing. If I switch to immersive, again, I'm getting similar things here where there's always a shift where the right side was slightly louder than the left. And then if I turn off inspector, you can see that it was evened out up here. This isn't as noticeable for gaming because you don't localize footsteps with bass. Bass tells you the presence of footsteps, and the higher frequencies is how your brain interprets where they are. So even though there's a little bit of a channel mismatch on my particular unit, again, I did this a lot, it still didn't affect imaging, and it was still a good contender. So with that being said, I want to talk about subjective gaming performance. Measurements aside, that does explain some stuff for what you hear. It also helps you compare against others, but it doesn't paint the entire picture of what your actual gaming and user experience is. Comforts, microphone, features, wireless performance, all of that is important. As far as the wireless performance goes, usually I touched on this earlier, my toilet test, I call it. The range is ridiculous. I got over 65 feet with the transmitter put in the exact same spot I do all my wireless testing on. So it's one of the farthest reaching transmitters I've ever used on a gaming headset, which is great. It is a little bit picky on the transmitter placement. So if you have, like I'm testing a lot of FlyDigi and the new Razer controllers for the Hall Effect sticks. And if you put the transmitter of that controller, the 1000 hertz pull rate controller, right next to the transmitter of the AceZone Wireless, every now and then I had some artifacting issues. Now, I've submitted a lot of stuff to the AceZone team. They've already been making some changes to the firmware, and there's a new one that will be coming to address some of the artifact issues I've been observing. I want to focus on a very important selling point of the AceZone models, and that loosely ties into a couple others here to my right. Now, this is the A-Rise. It is the leading headset when it comes to noise cancellation. If you don't want to hear anything in the background, you get the $800 A-Rise, which is basically if you go to a tournament and there's 20 to 50,000 people screaming and you want to block that noise out as much as possible while also making sure your microphone blocks out as much as possible so your friends can hear you speak. That's why you pay so much for the A-Rise. It's seriously another level, but it has a much stronger clamp. It's a heavier headset. The Aspire is more for the casual, still want a competitive noise cancellation function, but more for use at home. This is effectively the same headset, but now wireless. However, the active noise cancellation performance is a little bit better on the new wireless. Even though they look to be identical, I don't know if it's purely on the DSP side or they programmed it to work better, but I found that it got more of my background noise reduced. Let me explain this more clearly. So if you have a gaming desktop that has very loud fans, it makes a constant noise, that is a noise floor. The reason why noise cancellation or noise isolation can be a very important thing is if your noise floor is right here and an enemy's sneaking up and their footstep sounds are right here on the SPL meter, guess what? You're not really going to hear the footsteps. And that's where the marketing comes from AceZone, because you can hear things sooner. That's because it's reducing this noise floor, your computer noise, down to here. So as your footsteps get closer, they stand out more. This is one of the best, it's probably the best wireless headset I've used as far as noise cancellation goes, and that means that I'm hearing less of my fan noise. Turning ANC on and off does produce a little bit of a hiss, so it generates its own noise floor just by enabling it. However, in most cases, if you have loud fans or anything running in the background, that hiss is still a bit quieter than your background noise. I wanted to start with all that because that does affect subjective gaming performance and how you actually use it every day. And without that factored in, purely on sound quality, this is a good sounding headset, especially in FPS, because you can do all the custom EQ. I find that the bass gets quite nice and deep, especially with more aggressive EQ, but it won't sound as punchy or deep as the Turtle Beach Stealth Pro or the Astro A50X or the Maxwell. It's a good sounding headset overall. I find that the strengths lie more in competitive play than it does immersive gaming, but thankfully because it's comfortable with the lighter weight and all the other stuff, I could still use this for that. Most people don't care so much about sound quality for casual gaming as much as they do on the competitive side where people are trying to hear footsteps sooner. So that's really where you pay for the Aspire Wireless in this case. And overall, I'll just be honest. To me, it's not the best sounding headset between $300 and $400. I think for this price range, it's easily outgunned by a couple others. So I want to do my subjective sound explanation while I talk about other models here, because some of you may already have one of these, and this video is designed to help you decide if you even should buy another headset. I don't believe in consumerism where everything that's new should be considered, especially if you have something you love. So we're going to get right into this. Now, as far as FPS goes, purely on footsteps, if you want the edge in FPS, AceZone is still one of the best. The Turtle Beach Stealth Pro is still one of the best. I am blown away by how competitive the Stealth Pro is, which is about as good as the AceZone models, except the bass is a bit more punchy, and I think these sound better on music. Now, I don't want to make this video 2 hours long, so I'm going to very quickly loose fire about different models here, and then we'll move on, because that's going to be a whole nother video later. So when you compare it to the others, the Astro A50X is almost the same price. I mean, this is $380 retail. HDMI switch on the back. It connects to Xbox, PS5, and PC all simultaneously, and the headset lets you switch. It has an excellent microphone. The fact that it's dockable is nice. It also supports parametric EQ, which is cool. It has zero noise cancellation and the worst noise rejection here, because these are very breathable pads. So if your computer is making any kind of a noise, of all of these, the A50X was my least competitive headset I've used consistently. I tried this so many times, and this is always hooked up because I use it during the day for my work, because the microphone's great. And I love the simultaneous Bluetooth, and it sounds good from a tonality perspective for music. But as far as competitive play goes, the A50X, especially at its price, is pretty much outgunned by everything here. I already touched on the AceZone A-Spire Wired and the A-Rise if you want the noise isolation benefits or active noise cancellation benefits. And then with the older one, of course, it's just if you want to save money and you're just planning on using it USB. So then you have the big three, in my opinion, in this price range, especially with the thought of competitive play in mind. The Maxwell is still the best for music. It's not as good for competitive play, but I can still do just fine with it. It has no active noise cancellation technology. The microphone's not as great, but the battery life is exceptional. This is more if you just want a headset that does everything. It's still a wonderful option, and it sounds incredible, again, especially for music and movies. Then you have the Nova Pro. The Nova Pro Wireless is not like the best in any particular area. It doesn't have the best noise cancellation. It doesn't have the best build quality, at least perceived build quality, because that single hinge design, which is always kind of scary, but it is extremely comfortable. It has good active noise cancellation. The microphone's not great, but this does work on two platforms. It'll hop between Xbox and PlayStation, for example, if you buy the Xbox edition. I like that it has simultaneous Bluetooth, unlike the Maxwell, and I love the controls. The big selling point of this guy is you can customize it quite a bit. 10-band EQ on Xbox and PS5, and then parametric on PC. But I love having a dedicated game-to-chat wheel for both PC and Xbox. So I like the controls. I think overall this is still a competitive headset. It's just not going to blow you away in one particular area. The Stealth Pro from Turtle Beach, to me, is still, I think, one of the best headsets I've ever used for Call of Duty, and it's wireless. It has great noise cancellation technology. It has simultaneous Bluetooth. It has some quirks with the software. Some people have had issues in the past. The microphone works okay. It sounds decent. There's some technology for noise rejection and all that. So my gripe is I don't like the controls at all. The buttons are almost impossible to press in. They're really, really stiff. And the game to chat mix button is essentially unusable. You have to press and hold this for a few seconds. Then you can adjust it. Then we wait for it to be timeout, and then you can adjust volume again. It drives me crazy because had they gotten their controls right, it would be an easy recommend. Both these guys have swappable batteries too, if that's a selling point at all, whereas all the others are integrated into the headset itself. Like I said, I'm going to have a dedicated video that's going to compare all of the wireless headsets in a little bit more detail, but I just kind of wanted to give you a Cliff Note version. I have a piece of paper here because I took some notes, because there are some interesting things on decibel levels as far as how loud this goes and how that compares to other models. So I'm going to read some numbers off to you, because if noise is very important or higher volume is really important, understanding how this behaves matters. So the Aspire Wireless on PC, it goes to 102.4 decibels. This is firing a gunshot in Call of Duty. On wireless, on PlayStation 5, you get 102 decibels. Now on USB mode on PS5, you get 115.3 decibels, whereas the old Aspire in USB mode only hit 96. There is a massive volume increase by switching to the Aspire Wireless and using it in USB mode for PS5. If you're connecting it to on the PC, things change. On the PC, it goes to 102.3, basically the exact same volume as wireless on PC, but the older Aspire wired on PC hits 106.2 decibels. If you're using an analog connection on 3.5 millimeters, the Aspire Wireless hits 102.4 decibels, and the Aspire Wired hits 110.5 decibels, again on a 3.5 connection. Xbox is kind of a similar story, and it's actually louder on Xbox. The wireless goes to 108.5 decibels through an Elite controller, and the Aspire old USB edition goes to 112.5 decibels. All of these tests were done with the same calibrated SPL meter and through the same testing methodology on all three platforms, firing the exact same weapon in Call of Duty with everything maxed out. So I try to keep this as objective as possible. When you compare this to other wireless headsets on PC, the others are all a little bit louder. The Turtle Beach Stealth Pro hits 110.4 decibels, the Maxwell hits 109.4, and the Nova Pro Wireless hits 106 decibels. On PlayStation 5, the Stealth Pro again is the leader here with 108.1 decibels, 103.6 decibels going to the Maxwell, 102.7 to the Nova Pro Wireless, and 102 on the Aspire Wireless. I did provide some feedback to AceZone about possibly bumping the volume a little bit. They are adhering to European standards, so if you're in Europe and you're watching this, you may not get some of these other additional volume levels anyway. If the manufacturers are adhering to what's mandatory for as far as like SPL limits go to protect your hearing, then the playing field is going to be much more level. They simply didn't want to do a US version or a US firmware that changed that to give you more volume. So that's part of why the volume's a little bit lower. I think the one cheat is if you're on PlayStation 5 and you want something loud, at least at the current firmware that I'm on, use USB straight to the PlayStation and it gets crazy loud. Now the last thing I want to say on that is if you use USB connection on PlayStation 5, whether it's the wireless version or the wired version, USB connection does not give you any volume control on the headset itself. So you can adjust the volume on the headset and max it out, but nothing's going to change. You want to adjust your volume using the PlayStation itself with the on-screen UI at the bottom. Okay, so that wraps up a super long video yet again, but the AceZone A-Spire Wireless I think should be on a lot of people's radar. However, depending on what you have, I don't think it necessarily justifies replacing it. There is no doubt that it has some distinct advantages for FPS gaming, especially if your room makes noise. That's really the biggest selling point to me. It's still very comfortable. The wireless transmitter, once I sorted it out and made sure the connection was solid, was really reliable. I don't think it's as good of a performer on the music side. It just doesn't sound as good to me. So I think the strength is more if you only care about gaming and noise reduction while being comfortable is important to you, then I think it's going to fit the need for a lot of people out there. Lacking game to chat mix is kind of a bummer, but there are software solutions, like I said, if that's important to you and you want to adjust it yourself. Overall, it's a good headset. To be candid, I think at this price, it's outgunned overall by a couple others. I don't want to say it's the best one I've used in this range because when you look at the whole package, I think this could have been a little bit less money and it would be even more competitive. However, I don't dislike using this. I've been using it a ton, like at least 80 hours to 100 hours of game time at this point because I've had it for so long. And it's been great overall. I just don't think it's an absolute home run in every single regard. And little improvements like the mic sock and things like that could go a long way. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this and making it all the way to the end. I know it was a doozy. Don't forget to like and subscribe so I can see you at the next video. Stay safe and I'll see you next time. Bye.